Welcome to our inaugural EdTech Mondays, brought to you by the Mastercard Foundation in partnership with the Innovation Village through the EdTech Lab. This is EdTech Mondays Uganda, the country version of EdTech Mondays Africa, a platform to engage Uganda's EdTech community and other relevant stakeholders, including government, the private sector, the donors, on the emerging topics of education and how technology can address any of these challenges. EdTech Mondays will be held once every month, and each month we will dissect the future of education and the available opportunities to solve the challenges that exist. Now, this month we celebrate women and their resilience. Therefore, the theme, empowering young women's leadership, the role of EdTech, is fitting. And today we ask ourselves, how can we engage and empower more young women in the technology and education sector, and what role can they play in this sector? So joining me in the studio today are very elegant guests today. I will ask that we start introducing ourselves from that side, and back to Kisa.
I'm called Beat Baingana Bisangwa. I'm very passionate about leadership development. I'm passionate about gender equity and the issues of women in leadership. And I'm also passionate about inspiring greatness, especially among the young people. I'm passionate about dialogue, intergenerational dialogues between baby boomers, millennials, and the different generations. And currently, I'm Technical Advisor, Global Fund, Ministry of Education. I'm also Executive Director of FLAD, Uganda, which is Organization of African First Ladies, the Uganda chapter. I do also run a program called Dialogue that is actually, it's a platform that facilitates intergenerational dialogue. So I'm very passionate. That's
a lot of languages in between generations to learn. Yes, Michael.
Yeah, Raymond, pleasure to be here. Michael Niitejeka, the director at Refactory, a program that is run and hosted by three partners, Labremas, Clark International University, and Fontes Foundation. I think for me the passion is around the opportunities that we sit on from leveraging the power of technology. And if there's anything that gives me a good night's sleep is when I see, most especially, the young ladies realize that this is not just a male world. This is something they can take on and turn it around and make a good fortune out of it.
Thank you so much, Michael. Kisa.
Okay, my name is Victoria Serunkuma Kisarale, aka Kisa. I have been a teacher all my life. So I'm a teacher, I've taught. I've made 38 years in teaching.
Wow.
And currently I'm principal of Viva College School, but I've been a teacher. I just want to touch this soul, this young person. So I am fighting to grow younger mentally, psychologically, so that I can remain on their platform and do justice to whatever it is they want to do at their age. I want someone, I believe that every child, boy or girl, they have the ability to excel, to scale the heights. We are not talking about academic performance. We are talking about tapping into this child and finding what it is in them that inspires them, that excites them, that drives them, and we pick it from there. And I know that the sky can be the limit.
Kisa, maybe if we start the conversation from there. We just had a pandemic that shook the education world. It shook everyone's world, but education more intently. What kind of opportunities did that create for young people who had been out of school for almost a year? What kind of opportunities has it created for them?
First of all, I think the pandemic for me, when I talk about school, there are two places which impact people. The home setting and the school setting. When things go wrong, they ask about those. They were in a home for 1 year. And do you know, those people should have made use of the home setting. The education starts from there. Where somebody can learn the seemingly small things in that home. Even organizing the home said, we wash things at night, we clean the house, what needs to be done, creativity, critical thinking, problem solving, all begin from that home. Unfortunately, the people in that home have not been wired to take that on. Actually, they went on to the lamentation side.
I know.
This is not about only academic. Actually, the whole learning begins with the things at home. When you wake up in the morning, what are you planning to do? Because success or failure begins from there. And last week I was talking to the boys and said, for crying out loud, if you cannot wash the first garment on your body daily, right? You don't think about it, managing you primarily from there. What are we talking about? I've told parents that your son is in a room which he never sweeps. He doesn't know that he has to change bed sheets. He doesn't know that he has to cook. He doesn't know that he can also help dad or mom make their bed. What are we talking about? So for me, the pandemic, we had nothing to lament about the pandemic. We had to affirm and assert ourselves in the skills we need to learn at home. Number one. Number two, make use of the current technology to explore their interest. You know? So find out what is on Instagram. I am following Tony Blower on Fear. He's the only man, apart from the Israelites, who is doing a Krav Maga. I have learned things. Niyategeka, do you know what Krav Maga is?
It's a new space for you.
It's a military thing. It's a self-defense thing. But so we would have used technology to explore. For children to explore, to fly out of classrooms, limited spaces, to learn what is on YouTube, what is on TEDx, what is on Instagram, what the Nigerians are doing for fashion, for someone who is interested in fashion, for actually people to get in there and explore their interest.
Michael, that presents, I think, the opportunity that technology brought when the pandemic happened. Many young people had to resort to technology to be able to carry out their classes, but that also exposed them to other forms of education. I mean, you're having a class by Zoom, but someone has access to YouTube. What kind of opportunities in terms of learning did it create for the young people then?
So, I mean, two things happened. One, it caught us unaware in terms of everything.
Absolutely.
If you could put it that way. So the teacher was not ready to move to that space. The learner was not ready. The parent was not ready. The infrastructure was not ready. Like everything, we were just building from scratch. Even the service provider was not ready, because if you look at the internet service providers, their focus was largely in commercial spaces. They had never thought about home as a place that needs internet and good internet. And so a lot of people struggled with, you have bundles that expire in a flash.
Yes.
I mean, we've been talking in different forums that we can't talk about a digital ecosystem or economy where access to smartphones is still regarded as a luxury, and it is taxed as a luxury, and yet it is a productivity tool. I mentioned somewhere, I said, internet is no longer just a consumable, it's a marketplace. And so the way you're creating the Africa Free Trade Zone, we should also create the internet free trade, because it enables. So at that level, at a strategy level, we were caught flat-footed. Here's a challenge that we haven't even, we're beginning to wake up, but it is taking long for us to wake up and hit the ground running. If you look at this whole, I mean, do a survey, all universities that quote unquote are saying they're delivering classes virtually. They're literally moving the physical class onto the online Zoom. But the facilitator hasn't mentally shifted to realize that this kind of engagement requires a different infrastructure, requires a different mindset, and even the learners the other side. I think I was sharing with someone yesterday, I said, technology is not the biggest problem. It is how are we prepared to deliver what we can deliver. E-learning is not just about having slides online. It's about a whole experience. It's about how do I go online and feel like I'm in class.
Actually, Michael, it is learning, unlearning, and relearning.
Absolutely. Or somebody said skilling, reskilling, and upskilling. So more or less the same thing. But I mean, for me, it's something that we really need to pay attention to. I mean, later on I can share our own experience when we decided to move the program online. The things that we learned in the first few months, there's no school that could have prepared me for that.
Bit, you're the one talking across generations, and that's the kind of conversation we need now.
Yeah.
In terms of how do you present education differently to young people? What kind of leadership was required, or what kind of leadership do we need now to be able to transform the way we educate our young people?
You know, Chisalari has said it very well, that it starts from home. Because I believe that fundamentally leadership is about influence, and it starts with leading yourself. So we need to equip these young people to understand that they need to be proactive, and they're in charge and responsible for their lives and what happens to their lives. Now, when you've brought up such, either at family level, community level, you have young adults that are proactive, and that's where innovation and creativity comes in. Allow them to think.
Yes.
You know, engage them, even at family level. Conversations that allow them to bring ideas, suggestions, and try out things. I live with a grandchild, and it's amazing how we talk. I wish I knew this when I had my own kids, because she's a grandchild. You know, and my children look at her and they're like, hey, mama.
Yeah,
they're jealous.
They always feel that way.
Because of the interaction. In terms of education, we need to help our young people to think, to imagine, to innovate, even beyond the norm. Otherwise, we have this tight education that has boundaries. Some of us went through that, but I don't think currently that can work. So we we break the boundaries.
Breaking those fetters.
Yes, we provide spaces and platforms where these kind of conversations about life, about possibilities can actually happen.
Michael, I just wanted to pick on, I mean, you asked, one of the things you did ask me was the safety online. And I'll be honest with you, it was to meet my concern to a large extent. To meet my concern because many of us as parents, we are, I don't want to call ourselves digital natives, but we're largely adapters of technology. So we've just picked it on and we focus on the minimal side. So I am WhatsApp. If my email is working, and calendar, you're like a super user. So you really, and yeah, in office everything is set up. Now, many of us had never looked at what is this that I'm handing over to my child. When I was setting up the email account for our daughter, who is 12, we went through the process, and I told her, I am not giving her an adult email account. So what parents were doing, or even teachers, is they allow the child to, because most of these applications require you to have an email account. So what they would do is they would change the date of birth.
Oh yeah, to allow them to qualify.
To qualify to have an email account. But you see, when you allow your child to have that email account, you in essence are opening up adult content to her.
This is EdTech Mondays, a conversation brought to you in collaboration with the Mastercard Foundation and the Innovation Village. We take a very short break, but when we get back, we continue our conversation. Welcome back from the break. Thank you so much for sticking with EdTech Mondays. We're talking about the challenges faced by young women and girls in the EdTech space. What are those changes that the pandemic has taught the institution of education? Say, maybe we need to look at this differently. I don't think that previously schools demanded that their kids have Gmail accounts, but now with the pandemic, you can't teach them unless they have the accounts. What are those institutional changes that need to happen now?
Yeah, for example, now I'm listening to that for the first time. I mean, so there's so many things behind the, IT-related education that we don't know about.
Yeah.
So we are green about, and one wonders who would open up that Pandora's box of problems to tell us that, look here, this is a thing.
We need to direct it to BEAT. Probably she needs to take it to Ministry of Education. Because digital skilling has largely been left there. We talk about it, but we have not deliberately moved into it. So any teacher who comes to your school, in essence, should have a bare minimum digital competences.
I know that at Viva, we have had to move since March. Well, I entered there in June, but they've had to change to fit into Google Meet, into
Google Classroom.
Google Classroom, and so many other things. It has been a gradual process.
Yeah.
But that meant that somebody, I know my deputy Stella has passion about it. She's the one who has gone behind it to unpack and Colin and, you know, the entire IT team. But for us, we are waiting to say, hey, what works now? So when you talk about Video Panda, what am I going to do? And, you know, for my teachers, I was really surprised that some of them, a big number of them, didn't have laptops, so they've had to use Android phones. And when I went there and said, are you using a phone to teach? I give them kudos. I mean, I don't know if of be using my phone. I can only use a laptop. So there has been a lot.
Yeah, true.
My son told me last week that, Mommy, I'm a student of life, and the world is my library.
Awesome.
Wow.
Awesome.
That's powerful.
You think I've slept since then?
You've been awake.
Because he has taken it at a different level. The problem I'm finding with education now, that Beat mentioned it here, the education system, and the reason why, Michael, it has killed creativity, we are getting it, so you sit in this class to be told what to do.
And how to think, and what to think, what to think. Not
so
if the opportunity to think is there.
Yeah.
They tell you what
the
to
opportunity,
think.
no,
They tell you
I mean,
what
they
to
give
think,
it to you. Your work is to reproduce it. You don't even have to add anything. If you can give it to me the way I've given it to you.
Yes.
Then you're an A-class student.
You're an A-class student. My son had a challenge with one of the teachers. He said, but sir, if you do this way, it gives you this answer. And the teacher said, yes. But why have you crossed it?
Now, do you know where we are going? So the teachers, in the whole of this digital era, the teacher has not been retooled, or number one, she's a product of another system. And very few are eager to go and retool themselves. So they're a product of that. They are teaching students who are smarter and sharper and are aware of the world in which they are operating.
Absolutely.
And they are aware that their teachers are rigid. They are not ready to change the whole game. We are getting into something I just don't understand.
Yes. I wanted you to come in here because we are in the 21st century. We don't know if this pandemic will go away. But even then, the culture of education it's created, we don't know that that will change anytime soon. So in terms of like leadership and providing competence for what is the next generation teacher? What is the next generation learner? What kind of things do they need to interface with?
The next generation teacher need to be equipped for the next generation of students. And these things they're talking about, I think the teachers need to be taken through, because we need to have a paradigm shift. We need to understand that education is different than what we were told that it is. And so we need to widen it, and the teachers need to be equipped. But there's something I'm passionate about. So why don't we focus on strengthening families and equipping parents on actually teaching these children, creating the right environment for them to think and to learn and to know basics of what they need to pass on. You hear Michael here, he's talking about his son, he comes and asks this, the daughter is coming and asking this. How many parents are like Michael? What if we had a critical mass of especially emerging parents equipped as teachers? Let me tell you what is happening now, and that is really breaking my heart in terms of gender equity. What this COVID has done is to highlight the disproportionate vulnerability of the girls against boys.
Absolutely.
Reports are showing that up to 60% girls have gotten pregnant during this time. We don't know how many have gotten married, as children. Why is that? Because they don't have enough advocates. People who would advocate for them, starting at family level. This is education.
It is.
If you educate a girl, you know, a girl who knows, especially sense of self-worth and self-value, because that's education starts with knowing who you are. You're asking me what needs to happen. It has to happen at all levels. So if this girl was taught about her intrinsic value and what she needs to do to manage herself, this wouldn't happen. If boys were taught, you know, currently we have programs like He for She, where the boys are actually helping to support girls to be able to be empowered in terms of learning and becoming co-leaders with boys as they grow up. Those initiatives are good.
Michael, if we could just now come to the solution part. She's mentioned a very good thing about the disproportionate nature within which the pandemic has dealt the girls. What's that one thing that technology as an enabler can do to sort of bring that balance back and even enhance participation of girls in education?
Yeah, so the first thing we need to do is to change our attitude, and at all levels.
Mindset change.
Mindset change. You see, if you look at your tax policy, your tax regime right now, the way you're taxing internet-related services, internet-related accessories, your smartphones and all that, just shows you how we haven't comprehended the power of the technology. That when you start looking at it as a marketplace, it means you begin to enable as many people to get into that marketplace. The beauty with it is that we all can find space. But just being there won't give you value. You must go there with something. So if you're a comedian, there's space for you. So we need to empower as many people as possible. Not just empowerment. We need to tool people. We need to give them the appropriate skills. In November last year, Refactory went to Gulu. And the only thing we're teaching people is that how do you position your product on Facebook? Because you're there reading all sorts of stories, so-and-so has been caught, arrested, but how do I turn that into a marketplace? But also appreciating the fact that once you go into that space, there is a certain expectation. So at a country level, we need to begin to see how do we play in this space. And it has to be intentional. The Nigerians have crafted the whole fintech space.
Oh, yes.
And they are closing deal after deal.
Yes.
We need to have more engineers. Because as the Kissers of this world and Beat of this world begin to think on how to use technology, they need to find people that can work with them. We have less than 10,000 software engineers in this country. Nigeria has close to 50,000. So as we think about the digital economy, we also must have as many worksmen. So that in Gulu you have a software engineer, in Mbarara you have a software engineer, and they all don't have to have degrees. Most of the guys who are working for Facebook and Google don't have degrees in software engineering.
No.
They have learned on that job.
Yeah.
And so programs like Refactory are really short time, 9 months, come in, we work with you. We don't care what you've studied.
And I think that is the beauty of it, because they were not pushed in the box of the degrees.
Absolutely.
So they fly on their own. My son, again, is the one who said, Mommy, you people, you have problems. You are 18th century people using 19th century methods to teach 21st century children. Just doesn't work out.
Yes, but Kisa, very finally, if you could speak to us, how do we build on the aspirations of young people? How do we give them this small lab to experiment on their passions and build their aspirations and then become something that's worthwhile, rather than forcing them into, say, professions that they're supposed to get into?
I think we need to give them space to tap into themselves and grow that which is in them, and find out however crazy it is, we give them space to dream crazy. Every time I talk to the students in Viva now, they tell me there is this course for dad, but there is my passion here. I am saying the two must be, this other one, which is not daddy's course, must be given very good fertile, the correct soil to plant in that idea, and it is given space to be irrigated. But what is happening is that when he goes back home and say, my passion is into cooking, and he said, those things are not going to be asked in the exam. So, you know, the germination of whatever modest ideas begins from there and said, you know what, I bring up an idea, it is rooted into the correct soil, fertilized and irrigated, and it blossoms.
We've just had this policy on the re-entry policy. I don't know that you heard about it. It's allowing child mothers back to school. Yes, and I want to know how you're finding that, because now they know that even if I'm expecting, I can go back to school and actually allow to grow, you know, and explore and become the leader that I'm, and finish school and get empowered and become. I want to acknowledge what is already happening, because even us being here,
that was a very big one.
Yes, it's a big one, and it's
a very big one
and
very
who are already
good
in leadership, and they are doing lobbying and advocacy for all these things, so that we get many more girls in these spaces of leadership, and also being able to explore and to know that they can enter spaces of, you know, STEM. They can actually be there, and they can be involved in innovating and so I'm glad. I just wanted to know briefly how that is happening. I
really fully concurred. I really gave kudos to Minister of Education, because when someone becomes pregnant, she's convicted, tried, and judged. Bingo.
Condemned.
And her life is thrown to the dogs. But fun enough, that experience for a big number of them, I don't know, if they are tracked, it gave them a rude awakening. And I believe if they are given a chance, they would hang on that lifeline that is thrown to them.
All right, Kisa, if you had to speak to a young child who's watching this program, what would you tell them?
I want them to seriously take whatever is in their heart, that passion it is, whatever it is, however ridiculous it looks like, for them to take it in their hands and grow it. Find the right soil for it, put it in, nurture it, and irrigate it, with or without the permission of their parents.
Michael, if you had to send a message to a young child, what would it be?
One thing I'll tell them is that technology is a space that everybody can play, and I'm inspired. And given that this is a month celebrating women, I'm inspired by girls that I have seen, or ladies that I have seen, come up and take these opportunities. It's never too late. And Raymond, if you allow me, I'm reminded of a young lady called Beatrice, who is now employed, who was thrown out of home, family of 9. She was thrown out of the home, and the mother said, "You've studied, now go and look for a job." And she was on the street and couldn't find work. Joined our program. Beatrice had energy in a very small body, actually called her a turbo engine.
Absolutely, she would be.
She was top in everything that we're doing. At the end of 9 months, Beatrice is employed by one of the leading fintech companies in town. Beatrice is now supporting her mother and her siblings. So it is possible that when things like this happen, to rediscover yourself and use the technology. And I believe we all can be part of it.
Diversity is the mother of innovation.
Absolutely.
If you had to speak to a young child out there, what advice would you give them?
Especially young girls.
Yes.
I'd want to tell them that boys are as gifted, girls are as gifted as boys, and that girls and boys are equal in terms of worth and in terms of intrinsic value, and that they are both really designed to make a difference, to grow up, to succeed, and so they should have that drive, the initiative, the proactivity to be able to pursue whatever they feel they have in their hearts, and they'll be able to achieve. And nothing should ever stop them, because the sky is the limit.
Thank you so much for watching the EdTech Mondays. This conversation will be happening monthly, and you'll find it on these very pages. Have yourselves a good day.